Good evening. I am Glendora Lashley, moderator for this evening's episode of Tobago Matters. Tobago Matters is a virtual series of community meetings aimed at providing accountability and transparency to the population of Tobago and, by extension, Trinidad. This series is to allow the Tobago House of Assembly to report to the population on its plans and initiatives while simultaneously facilitating dialogue with and feedback from the population. This program is live on Tobago Channel 5, TTT, Tobago's Channel 5, and the Office of the Chief Secretary's Facebook pages, as well as on radio on Pulse 89.5 FM, Radio Tambourine 92.7 FM, and Street 919 FM. This evening, we will be looking at thriving in the pandemic phase with a focus on Tobago's COVID-19 response as it relates to social support, business support, and education. We are joined this evening by a panel of 4 officers of the THA, the Secretary with responsibility for Health, Wellness, and Family Development, Tracy Davidson-Celestine, Secretary with responsibility for Community Development, Enterprise Development, and Labor, Marslyn Melville-Jack, the Senior Program Coordinator in the Division of Health, Wellness and Family Development, Dr. Crystal Benjamin, and the Manager of the Business Development Unit at the Division of Community Development, Enterprise Development and Labor, Shelly-Ann Baptiste. Good evening, panelists.
Good evening, Glendora.
All right, we will now go to each panelist for a brief introduction of their respective roles within the THA. We will start with the Health Secretary, followed by the Secretary for Community Development, Enterprise Development and Labor, and then we will go to the Senior Program Coordinator, followed by the Manager of the BDU. Health Secretary.
Well, thank you very much, Glendora, and pleasant afternoon to the listening public. And of course, I must recognize my colleague in the Executive Council of the Tobago House of Assembly, Mrs. Marslyn Melville-Jack, and of course, Dr. Benjamin, who is the Senior Program Coordinator in the Division of Health, Wellness and Family Development, and of course, Manager in the BDU unit, that would be Mrs. Shelly-Ann Baptiste. In the Division of Health, Wellness and Family Development, of course, you would know as a secretary, we are responsible for general direction and control of a division. And so at this point in time, I lead 2 divisions, that is the Division of Health, Wellness and Family Development, and also the Division of Sport and Youth Affairs. And as I indicated, we are largely responsible for ensuring that policies are set and policies that will affect in a positive way the people of Tobago.
Thank you very much. Secretary for Community Development.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Marslyn Melville-Jack, and I'm the Secretary of Community Development, Enterprise Development and Labor, as well as Education, Innovation, and Energy. My role within the divisions of the Tobago House of Assembly, as was said earlier, is that of policy direction. We ensure that the policies of the Executive Council are executed well within each division. We are also responsible for the overall general management of our divisions. And this evening, we have the opportunity to share with you some of the actual work that we do in our divisions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Secretary. Senior Program Coordinator.
Thank you, Glendora. So good evening, everyone. I serve as the Senior Program Coordinator at the Family Development Department. So essentially what we do is provide psychosocial support to individuals and families across the lifespan. The goal and the aim is really to help persons build family resilience. So I'm really excited to be here this evening.
Thank you very much. And Manager of BDU.
Good evening, and thank you very much for having me and having us here. Good evening, viewers, listeners. The Business Development Unit, which I am charged with the responsibility of leading, we are responsible for entrepreneurial development in the meso and micro sectors of Tobago. We have various initiatives, for example, our grant and loan program. We are also responsible for training of those same entrepreneurs. We are also responsible for the management of the 5 micro centers across the island. And we are really thrilled and privileged to assist in this COVID response, as well as to assist persons generally in realizing their entrepreneurial dream on the island of Tobago.
Thank you very much. And with that, we go to a short break. You're viewing Tobago Matters. Stay with us.
Are you experiencing overwhelming emotions such as depression, sadness, and anxiety? Need to talk to someone? Well, the Division of Health, Wellness, and Family Development is here to help. Access our telecounseling service today. Call or WhatsApp 683-8341 for 24/7 support that's professional and confidential.
Hi, I'm Mr. Rajman, Drainage Supervisor with the Division of Infrastructure, Quarries and the Environment. The decision for me to take the vaccine was a no-brainer, not just to protect myself and my family from the COVID virus, but the public as well. On a day-to-day basis, I'm charged with running the Roxborough District, which I have to interact with 600 plus workers, key stakeholders in the community and the public. So it's time for us to really stamp out this virus and eradicate it. So vax up, protection starts with us.
Here's your Tobago House of Assembly COVID update. Did you know that the THA has issued over $13 million in COVID-19 business grants and loans? Under the Business Development Unit, the following grants were distributed. Craft, $61,200. Garment construction, $1,130,578.37.
Thank you for staying with us. You're viewing Tobago Matters. We are live on Tobago Channel 5, TTT. We are live on Facebook as well, on the pages for Tobago Channel 5, as well as the Office of the Chief Secretary. And we're also live on radio. Pulse 89.5 FM, Radio Tambourine 92.7 FM, and Street 919 FM. Let me tell you as well that you will get the opportunity later on in the program to interact with the panelists. You can do so through WhatsApp, questions on Facebook, and of course there will be a live call-in segment. We will give you those numbers a little later on in the program. To get straight into the discussion, Secretary for Health, Wellness and Family Development, I'd like to start with you. This program is essentially, we're talking about the COVID response, the COVID-19 response in Tobago. I'd like for you to share with the audience what has been the response specifically from the Division of Health, Wellness and Family Development so far.
Well, let me say, Glendora, that from the perspective of the Division of Health, Wellness and Family Development, of course, that includes the Tobago Regional Health Authority as well. And I just want to put everything into context that when we started, I think it was in February or March of last year, of course, we started with a situation where we did not know when and we did not even know how in terms of this COVID-19 pandemic. And to date, we have come a very long way. When we started, we basically had one pathway to treating with COVID, and that would have been to house persons at the Scarborough General Hospital. But as a team and the task force, we looked at the different options that were in front of us, and very quickly we created a second pathway, which is a pathway that would treat with those who are COVID positive in a manner that is different to those who are not COVID positive. And that would have seen the coming into being a number of different facilities to host those who are COVID positive and well, and those who are COVID positive and not well. And then, of course, later we created a dedicated space at the one of our facilities for those who are very, very unwell. I just want to make the point that in the Division of Health, Wellness and Family Development, we don't only treat with the health aspect of the individual. We also treat with the psychosocial aspect as well. And so we also had the responsibility to ensure that persons' mental health and wellness is kept intact, and most importantly, that those persons who were affected because they would have lost their jobs, were taken care of. And so we provided food support, we provided rental support so that we can keep roofs over people's head, and most importantly, so that persons can eat. And so the Division of Health, Wellness and Family Development has had a very comprehensive response to treating with COVID-19. Of course, we are in the forefront where that is concerned, and we are focused now on the solution, which is ensuring that that many Tobagonians are vaccinated. I think at this point we have vaccinated over 10,000 persons, and of course we are focused on having at least 45,000 persons on the island vaccinated. So to sum up, we have created two pathways, treating with those who are not COVID positive and treating with those who are COVID positive. And most importantly, we have also been able to treat with the psychosocial aspects of Tobagonians as well.
Okay, Secretary, you also have responsibility for youth affairs and sport. How has that division, those areas, been impacted by COVID-19, and what has been the response from that specific division?
Well, the Division of Sport and Youth Affairs, especially the Department of Sport, has been affected in a very negative way, because you know that for the last year or so, we have really had no sport played on the island, and for most of the months, most of the sporting facilities were closed. So there was hardly any activity. With respect to the Department of Youth Affairs, they have become very creative in the sense of using online, using the technology, using social media, and all those different platforms to reach the young people out there. And so they have been having quite a lot of sessions, of course, now focused on ensuring that our young people who seem to be very vaccine hesitant, that they get the information about the importance and, of course, the benefit of coming forward to be vaccinated. And I know pretty soon they will be starting some talks in terms of autonomy and what autonomy means for the people of Tobago. So the Department of Sport, the Department of Youth Affairs, they have become very creative using the online and other platforms.
All right, thank you very much. We turn to Secretary Marslyn Melville-Jack. Can you give us, basically I'm presenting the same questions to you with respect to the division, firstly, of Community Development, Enterprise Development and Labor. What has been the COVID-19 response like from that specific division?
Thank you so much, Glendora. The onset of the pandemic has really affected families within communities. There have been job losses, reduced incomes, and in many instances, business closures. So at the Division of Community Development, Enterprise Development and Labor, the Department of Community Development sprang into action very early because, as the Secretary said, this was a novel virus. We did not know where we were going. So they assisted 1,000 persons in communities by providing face masks. We asked the tutors of our vocational skills classes to manufacture these masks, and 1,000 of them were provided to vulnerable persons within community. They also looked at complementing the food drive, because as the pandemic went on for some time, people needed food. So we felt that in true form to our mission, which is building strong families and sustainable communities, we needed to assist in the food drive in some form or fashion. So we distributed to date 350 hampers, 100 food vouchers. And I say assist because we know that so many private citizens and NGOs are doing the very same thing. But that was only one side of our response. Another very important part of our response was our vocational skills program. That is the flagship program of this division. And it meant that we would have had to move from face-to-face practical sessions to an online session. So training of tutors, training of persons in community to access these courses online was also another response. And on the business side, I would like to say that the Executive Council decided that we had to respond to the plight of small and micro entrepreneurs. So $13 million in funding was given within that period from March of last year till now in grants and loans. And this was in an effort to ensure that businesses did not close up shop.
Okay, Secretary. Let's go to your dual portfolio as well. A heavy, very heavy portfolio that is education, innovation, and energy. Talk to us about the COVID-19 response and the challenges from that division.
At that division, our greatest challenge was that move from the interactive face-to-face classroom session to a remote online session. And everyone was affected, students, teachers, even parents, because it was not just about having a device and learning from home. It was about integrating parents and support systems in the children's education. That in itself was a major challenge. The provision of devices was handled, I want to say, very proficiently by the division, because to date, 4,151 devices were procured for all levels of schools. And at this point in time, I wish to let the population know that any student requiring a device should contact the principals of the school, not the division. I also want to say that teachers had to undergo major change, major training to ensure that they were able to proficiently deliver the curriculum and keep students engaged at the same time. So that within the Division of Education, Innovation and Energy was our greatest challenge.
All right, thank you very much. Lots to explore a little later on, but let's bring in the Senior Program Coordinator, Dr. Benjamin. Can you talk to us about the specifics of the response under your department? For example, is it that you can provide a breakdown of the distribution, of the services that you all have offered so far under the Department of Family Development?
Yes, sure. So family development is a really big department. We provide, as I mentioned earlier, services to persons from the uterus, or as we say locally, until death and dying. So we are dealing with persons throughout the lifespan. So some of the things that are more popular in terms of what persons know that we have done would be the rental assistance. So we have provided rental assistance. To date, there were 837 COVID rentals approved. In terms of food support, we have distributed over 2,000 food vouchers to persons in vulnerable situations. But I don't want us to forget the counseling as well. And we have definitely seen an increase in the number of sessions that we have had this year. So the average, in terms of monthly average, is about 100 in 2021. And in 2020, the average was about 63 sessions per month. So we definitely saw an increase in the number of counseling sessions. And we did notice persons who experience symptoms of anxiety, symptoms of depression, persons who are at risk for suicide as well. And we definitely had to do some interventions there. We also work with children in vulnerable situations, so children in need of supervision, children in need of protection. And they are housed within our children's residence, our community residences, and our probation hostel. So children's residence would see children from 0 to 12, and then our probation hostel will work with children from 13, or teens from 13 to 18. And let me tell you, the staff had to work really hard because the young persons are in that space 24/7 because schools were closed. and they have their own mental health challenges. So we had to get very creative, did some field trips, you know, tried to use the outdoors as mental health and wellness, because we had some challenges there in terms of suicide risk. And if you know, teenagers are usually at a higher risk or an increased risk of suicide ideation and even attempts. So we had to be very, very creative there. In terms of another program that we have, which is the program for adolescent mothers, that I'm personally proud about. And why I'm proud about that is because we were able to transition from in-person to online. So we have something that I like to call PAM Online. And so these young ladies from about 16 to 19, that's what our current cohort, the age range is, they are online doing CXC classes, so like mathematics, English. They're also doing cosmetology, etc. And the goal is really to help them reintegrate into school if they're in high school. So we had 2 young ladies who actually went back to high school to finish their CXC, so we're really proud about that. We have TechVoc, and you know, in partnership with Digicel, we received 19 devices to enable our population who have special needs to engage in online learning. So they're learning computer science, they're learning arts and craft, they're doing gardening, and it's really exciting to see that we've been able to engage our persons with disabilities. So in terms of the aging population, we work up with about 34 clients currently. So we have our hard-working caregivers, some of them working with more than one client, and they're providing care, they're shopping for our senior citizens, they're attending clinics with them, they're ensuring that they're safe, you know, and advocating for them in the household that they remain safe. So we're really...
If I may ask you, sorry to cut you across there.
No, it's okay.
You're talking about a lot, and you mentioned it twice in terms of the staff, your colleagues. Is anything in place? How is the staff coping? I know many of us, we are concerned about our personal needs, but your staff, they're individuals as well.
Yeah, they are. They are humans who breathe and eat and sleep and also have their own challenges, right? I must say that I am very proud of my staff, because in spite of all that's going on, because they have their own health scares, they have their own challenges, but in spite of that, they have been demonstrating resilience, they've been demonstrating innovation, and I'm really grateful for their service during this time. Now, it's not perfect, we do have errors, etc., but I've seen where they're going beyond the call, and I really appreciate that. But it's not easy, it really isn't. Some of us are having difficulty sleeping, so we're seeing symptoms of vicarious trauma, we're seeing symptoms of burnout. It's really, really difficult, but recently, we organized some group sessions with the Employee Assistance Program to help to provide some debriefing, and we're also encouraging like the social workers and counselors to have weekly debrief sessions and even daily debrief sessions to really be able to, you know, treat with the situations. Because as you said, they're humans, you know.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, hopefully you're also going to reach out to the manager of BDU and offer some of those services. And I want to bring in the manager of BDU right now. Let me start off in the same vein. How has your staff been coping? Because you're also running an exhausting unit in the THA.
Truth be told, it was at one time becoming a bit overwhelming. Let me also take this opportunity publicly to say thanks. Heartfelt thanks to my staff, Team BDU. It's a small unit, 11 of us, 2 of which are currently on maternity leave. And when the lockdown took place, that did not apply to BDU, because we are considered as essential services, so we've been out right through COVID.
Wow.
And just as Dr. Benjamin said, we have not been immune to the onslaught of COVID, the quarantine and the self-isolation. Our staff as well had the challenge of the online schooling, but in spite of, I must say a hearty thanks. We continue to rise above and beyond the call of duty. The truth is, we love what we do.
So I'm curious.
Yes.
You're under pressure, just like the rest of us. BDU got anything done? What's your COVID response like?
Wow. And I think that is why we are so proud of ourselves. because in spite of, as the ads would have shown, we would have disbursed over 13 million in the last fiscal. For this fiscal, which is October to March 2021, we would have received 528 applications amounting to $15.2 million. So it has been steady, and as a result, the Executive Council had to take a decision to put a stop. So as of March 31st, there was a halt on accepting new applications so that we were able to process those that were inside.
Wow. That's 528 applicants in Tobago. Is this loan applicants? Is it grant applicants?
That's
both?
a combination of loan and grant. And that's for the period, as I said, from October 2020 to March 2021.
Okay. So, Health Secretary, I want to come back to the Health Secretary just a bit. With respect to, we're talking figures, and your division is one that everybody, I suppose, is looking on at and we're questioning. The TRHA, at the start of the national response to COVID-19, the TRHA got a 50 million injection from central government, and if I'm not mistaken, the Executive Council added an additional 5 million. Can you talk to us about the current financial health of the TRHA since you've gotten the 50 million in respect of the COVID-19 response so far?
Well, let me say that yes, and we are very, very thankful for the injection of the 50 million that we have spent largely on ensuring that we keep Tobagonians well, and most importantly, that we keep them very safe. That money was distributed throughout the Division of Health, Wellness and Family Development to treat with rental assistance that you just heard from the coordinator in the Departments of Health, Wellness and Family Development, and it was also distributed to the TRHA. Of course, you know, first and foremost, they had some challenges with gratuity payments for members of staff, and we first dealt with that because we felt that we had to motivate our staff, and so we were able to, I think, pay out about $19 million of that to treat with gratuity. The other sums were used largely to bring our facilities up to speed. Those facilities which are now at the old fort, or where the old hospital was. So we now have the trek that we had to reorganize. We have the green room that would have come on stream. So we had to purchase beds and those kind of things. And we also have the geriatric facility that we also had to do significant refurbishments on in order to bring that up to date. We have also injected funding into bringing ambulances up to speed so that those ambulances can now be used to transport COVID-positive patients, COVID-positive, and of course those who are well and those who are not so well, because you know when we started off with treating the COVID pandemic, all persons who are COVID-positive would have been kept in our facilities of care. And for all those persons that we housed, we had to provide meals. So it was tea, breakfast, and dinner, as my grandmother used to say. And so a significant portion of that funding was used to treat with meals for those persons who were in our care. And then, most importantly, we needed human resources because, of course, you know, it was a very unpredictable time. We needed more staff on board. And so we were able to hire, I think, about 40 or 45 nurses, some doctors in between, I think about 20 or so, at the level of house officers. And then, of course, we needed to expand those who are in environmental services, so to speak. And then, of course, we were able to inject some funding, I think about about $2 million or so into providing food support for those persons who have since applied to the Division of Health, Wellness and Family Development. And then, of course, to establish our online system so that persons can call in to receive mental health and wellness advice and care. So the point I'm making is that the $50 million was well spent, and of course the objective was to ensure that our systems are as robust as possible so that we are able to churn out the kind of services for those persons who would need the services. I think somewhere along the lines we were able to improve on our equipment as well at the Scarborough General Hospital.
All right. While you're managing on the go, and of course the TRHA Health is a division that always needs more money, have you been able to kind of get a breather and try to figure out how to get additional resources? Because obviously you can't go to the central government for everything and keep asking, for an increase in the allocation. I don't know that the Executive Council, if you all have a secret fund somewhere, but have you been thinking about, how, this is real. People are arguing all of the time, but at the end of the day, there's a cost attached to everything. Yeah. Have you been up at nights thinking about how to get more money and more resources?
Well, managing the Division of Health, Wellness and Family Development and treating with the Tobago Regional Health Authority, it's really a balancing act. How do you improve your equipment? How do you improve service delivery? And where do you find the funding to do all that you want to do within that division? And so for us, it's really a balancing act. I am sure the secretaries would tell you, if you were to talk with them, they would indicate to you that the Secretary of Health is always requesting funding from the Executive Council. And that is because, we try to ensure that we have a system that is effective and one, of course, that is very efficient. And it requires the human resources. It requires us treating with the equipment in a particular way. And there are times where we just have to do what we have to do, but it's a really costly exercise to manage the Scarborough General Hospital. And of course, we have about 17 health centers as well that would provide primary care services. And then we have the Roxborough Hospital that will come into being soon, into service soon.
All right, thank you very much. I just want to remind everyone that you're viewing Tobago Matters. If you're in Tobago especially, or a Tobagonian living elsewhere, you need to call all your family members and let them know to tune in right now. Later on, you're going to get an opportunity to interact with the panelists. We are going to give you the numbers. You can do that on WhatsApp, on Facebook. Of course, you can call in. So we are going to invite participation just a little later on. But for now, make sure that you get all of Tobago tuned in. We are live on Tobago Channel 5, TTT. We're live on Facebook. You can check out the Tobago Channel 5 Facebook page or the Facebook page for the Office of the Chief Secretary. We're also live on radio. So if you have to move, you're not going to miss anything. Just find the radio station, either Pulse 89.5 FM, Radio Tambourine 92.7 FM, and of course, Street 919 FM. I want to go to the Senior Program Coordinator for just a bit. Staying on the health there. The Secretary has all sorts of complaints. We don't even need to hear her talk because everybody is always complaining. But I want to hear from your side. What are some of the issues you have identified or Tobagonians have come out and said to your department? These are critical issues affecting us right now under this COVID-19 pandemic.
Right, so I think one of the main challenges would be the timelines for some of our grants. So I know persons would reach out and they're very frustrated, and sometimes some staff will get a tongue lashing from the public. And so, that's definitely there. I would say customer service, we definitely needed to improve in that area in terms of being able to provide feedback and the way that we communicate with frustrated persons. So those things were definitely at the forefront of all the complaints that so far.
So you've worked on that, I presume, because we've had some people saying, this one didn't talk to me right, or this one sent me back for the same information I provided.
and that had a lot to do with our communication channels and the way that we did things. So we actually implemented the Family Help Hotline. So persons could contact the Family Help Hotline via WhatsApp or call, and then they could get their real-time feedback. They're not always happy about the feedback, but they get it. So that's the good thing there. So we've improved that. We've also been working with staff in terms of alternative ways of saying things. It's sometimes not what you say, but how you say it. So we've been doing that. And part of it is really trying to relieve some of the staff's stress. right? When you're stressed out, you're not really looking for the most polite way to respond to someone. And some of the clients could really test the best people, you know? But yeah, so we definitely have been doing some training, and working on our communication internally as well, and having that hotline was very helpful.
Okay. Have you guys thought about, I suppose, well, restructuring may not be the best way to put it, but assisting the population, the Tobagonians who may have challenges with literacy and numeracy, because that's a major part of why people sometimes appear arrogant. You know, there is that learning challenge that we like to pretend doesn't exist.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Glendora. We've been noticing some of that because we have been trying to transition persons to using the online application because you could get a faster turnaround with using that. But for some reason, people just prefer for us to call and to go through the interview process with them. So we're seeing that. So what we're trying to do now is be better at how we track data and to get that data so we could put that proposal together. Our secretary is all about data. So we want to make sure we capture that data, manage it well, and then put something together. But there's some literacy things going on behind the scenes. Let me also say we are grateful for the feedback, right? So even the not so great comments, we've actually used that to improve our services. So we're grateful for it. You know, you could probably taper how you say it to us, but we're grateful because it helps us to improve on our service. And I could definitely say since my time there, I've been seeing improvement in the staff and their productivity. And so, yeah, so it's good stuff.
All right, thank you very much. Well, another group of people who are also very upset and, you know, I suppose also in need, parents of students. So let's go to the Secretary Marslyn Melville-Jack. You and the hot portfolio of education at this time. Can you talk about, we're getting into a new school year in September. Can you speak to what is in train to help students at this point, given all that has happened with COVID-19? What is in train to help students, parents, teachers, everybody prepare for this new school year?
Well, Glendora, I want to start with teachers because having been a past educator, I can relate to what is going on with teachers at this time. And many times I thank God that I am not in the hot seat right now. You know, where I live, I have two teachers on my right and on my left, and I can hear them interacting with parents and students all hours of the night. You know, so I empathize with teachers. They have been doing a fantastic job. They have really risen to the occasion, and we are immensely grateful for that. And I know even the parents are grateful. They now understand what teachers have been going through because home has now become school, you know, and the roles of parents in their children's education have changed. And I really think that it is an important change that we should not take for granted. Now, we heard the Prime Minister this afternoon speak to the fact that we are hopeful that we can have a reopening in September. Students need that interaction, that social interaction that they have been missing for more than a year. So that is the projection. However, because we don't know how this virus will act, you know, it is so dynamic, the situation, that it is impossible to predict. But I must say that the Ministry of Education, as well as the Tobago House of Assembly and all stakeholders, we are currently in discussion in putting together guidelines for the opening in September. This opening, we hope, will be a blended approach, a combination of face-to-face and online, on some kind of rotational system. I am not going to go into how that will happen at this time because we have not yet finalized how this rotation will be. We will continue to train teachers on these online platforms and to provide the same sort of emotional support that is required. Our student support unit at Division, does not only cater for students, it caters for parents as well as teachers. And this unit has been working non-stop for this academic year because so many challenges have come about because of this new normal. And we have found that students themselves have been undergoing all kinds of emotional stress. Many of them have literally dropped out. However, I'm proud to report that with the intervention of the student support unit, many of those students are back online, because the psychologists in that unit, as well as the counselor and everybody, they would do home visits and counseling because our children are our greatest resource and we do not want to lose them. As usual, the plant, and I must say we in Tobago are in a fortunate position in that many of the school plants have been COVID compliant. I visited almost every school, and I can tell you that we are ready for the September term, and whatever still needs to be done will be done during this vacation.
Okay, before we go forward, because I want to ask you a bit about any assistance that may be possible. Looking back a bit in terms of the last school year, the division, your division, even before you took up this dual portfolio, partnered with Digicel to have your online system, the learning management system, or at least something that mirrors what the Ministry of Education has made available to all students. And that was free to any student who had a Digicel SIM card. Do you have any information at all in terms of the use of that, the feedback from teachers on that platform? Because I mean, it was a good initiative, but whether or not there was an uptake in terms of the use and how that bared out?
Well, at this point in time, I'm not able to provide that information, and the fact that I'm not means that it may not be in operation at this point in time. The last thing we had with Digicel is where we were given a package for teachers and parents that was much lower than what is on the market at this point in time. They were to have unlimited data and that kind of thing, and that package cost was just about $300, so that is the only one that I'm aware of at this time, but I will look into that you spoke about a while ago, and we'll see where we can go with that.
Yeah, because one of the things with that is that the ministry tried it, and Trinidad had their own issues, but Tobago sort of mirrored. And this, I suppose, is when we were starting to figure out if you wanted to use Zoom or Skype, going online for the first time. But not many people would have the kind of access. But just to go a bit, you talked earlier, I think you said 4,151 devices were distributed. Does that reflect the actual number of students who were in need, or are there additional students who needed that you all simply were not able to provide for?
Well, at this point in time, it reflected those who were in need. As a matter of fact, it was even a little more than the numbers that we got from the principals, But I predict that we will have to access some or procure some more devices for the upcoming term, and we are prepared to do that at this point in time. We are also looking at providing some teachers who may require laptops with laptops. To date, we have given 153 laptops to teachers, and we propose to do something similar within the new term.
All right. And again, to talk about any financial assistance, the Division of Education usually has some assistance. Is there anything, can you speak to that? And is there anything additional given what we've had with the COVID-19 pandemic?
Well, all during the year, the Student Support Unit is responsible for providing assistance to students in need once a needs assessment form has been filled out. The offer is for uniforms and school books, etc. And that normally happens during the July-August vacation. That is when we have our highest number of recommendations. To date, I can tell you that our numbers have reached just about 1,400. So we do intend to continue the program, especially for this new term, where students may be expected to return to their classrooms physically.
All right, thank you very much, Secretary. I want to go to the manager of the Business Development Unit. You spoke about 528 grants and loans being given out, 15.2 million, if I remember correctly. Can you speak to the different areas, the different business areas that were given that support?
Sure. So the 15.2 that I spoke about is applications that we would have received. In terms of the sectors last year as well as this year, agriculture and agribusiness, and we saw an increase in terms of the traditional agriculture, as well as persons who have now migrated to hydroponics. We saw agro-processing, an increase, our revival of farine, for example, and our confectionery, fishing and fish processing, food and beverage, which is inclusive of restaurants and mobile vendors. We saw garment construction, light manufacturing, which included welding and fabricating, joiners, builders, masons, retail, which were mini marts and meat shop, haberdashery, retail outlets, services, a number of hairdressers, because we know that those in particular have been severely affected. So hairdressers, barbers, landscapers, and of course we also supported the tourism sector in terms of the tourism ancillary services grant, and those catered for persons doing event management, the wedding planners, the tour guides, the taxi operators. We have catered to a wide cross-section of the Tobago public.
Did you get any grants from a non-traditional area, grant applications, or did you get any that you also had to turn down and maybe advise the applicant that this isn't feasible at this time?
Yes. Unfortunately, yes. We need to explain that not because you come for a grant and there are some persons who really, sorry to say it, it's just a dream. But our process, we need to walk it through. We need to examine, is there a market available for the product or service that you're offering? Or is it just a pie in the sky? Have you worked out the nicks and who are your target market? Is it plausible? How much money can you really make given the investment that you're asking us to invest in your business? What is the return on the investment? What guarantee do you have? Who have you tested this product on? So the truth is, yes, we have had to deny some of the applications, unfortunately.
Does the BDU offer that kind of pre-training or pre-orientation to kind of get applicants and prospective business people to understand the point that you've just made there? Because yes, many of us, especially with COVID-19, the first thing many of us thought about is, okay, we can't go to work, we might as well start a business.
Yes.
And not many people really doing the research into the business. As a matter of fact, I may see Dr. Benjamin selling salt prunes and see everybody in her division selling, and I figure, well, okay, I could sell that too. And then when I start selling, nobody buys from me. So is there that kind of meeting of the applicants or even outreach to those who have not applied just yet to be able to get them to understand that?
Yes, part of the service we offer is training, discussion. We have had instances that persons would have come into the unit asking for a grant, but the truth is they did not need money. Some people just need you to sit down and talk with them. They might have already had a product or a service. How do you re-engineer? How do you recreate to make what you already have viable? There are some persons who might, so you hear that we have a grant and you're rushing for a grant. But do you have the capacity to manage a business? Mm-hmm. No. So part of our portfolio is that of counseling, that of talking, that of nurturing, that of hand holding, literally, and walking persons through the process.
Have you also had to go out, unfortunately, globally and of course here in Tobago, COVID-19 has caused a lot of businesses to simply shut down. Some people started off closing, for the initial 2 weeks or so, but as time progressed, businesses simply had to close down. That's the harsh reality of the market in Tobago in particular. Have you had to, your division, your unit, go out and maybe help some people to sort of understand why, and even, I suppose, do a needs assessment or an analysis as to what are some of the underlying problems? Because some people, they may have been in business for 15 years, 10 years, 5 years, and then something like the pandemic happens and they have to close. Based on the COVID response, are you looking at that?
Yes, and in fact, we would have started. It also demands a paradigm shift, even for BDU. So we would have partnered, for example, with the Department of Community Development in offering online training for the vocational skills program. The Business Development Unit would have assisted in terms of executing a class specific for entrepreneurs. On that point, I want to encourage persons that you have to re-engineer. See COVID as an opportunity for you to re-engineer and reinvent yourself. So for example, last week I was talking with one of our clients who is into the fitness industry. And we know gyms have been closed. So COVID now provides a perfect opportunity for you to expand your market. There are persons who will not go to a gym because of body shame or what have you. So they are comfortable staying at home. Because everybody is now online, you now have a wider market that you can reach your customers in their home where they are comfortable and provide a service. So COVID therefore provides an opportunity for persons to re-engineer. Your product can now be sold on the World Wide Web. Utilize the various platforms that are available, not just the Facebook to make the commerce, but put yourself out there, put your product and your service out there and reinvent and re-engineer yourself. The world is at your fingertips.
What has the feedback been to that? When you say to the entrepreneurs who are already there, because I'm thinking about one for many people. We've heard several enterprise owners in Tobago, complain about simply going on social media, right? Especially many who have been in business for quite a long time. We've seen the THA try to get people to upgrade packaging, those kinds of things, and there has been a pushback. Now with the COVID-19 pandemic, based on those clients that you have you seen a change in the mindset? Are people more willing, are the business owners more willing to go towards the change that is needed?
Reluctantly, yes, because as my grandmother used to say, necessity is the mother of all invention. You cannot afford to sit down home and complain. So if we stay where we are at, then we will not progress. So reluctantly, yes, they are realizing, look, this is survival mode. And therefore, in order for me to survive, in order for me to compete with others in the industry, I have to make this move. I have to do this. And we would have seen it even in some food establishments. Suddenly people were doing takeaway, curbside pickup. It pushed people to think outside the box, really.
Okay. Well, I won't put you on the spot and ask you to tell people what are some of the areas that they just should not get into, because those things aren't profitable. I won't put you on the spot at all, but I will ask people to kind of look into that. Follow what the manager of the Business Development Unit is talking about. Do the research. When you're going to bring something to the market, do the research. We're going to stop and take a break now. You're viewing Tobago Matters. We ask you to stay with us. We'll be right back.
vaccination as a symbol of hope that our island and our country could return to economic normalcy in the quickest possible time. I believe that once a sufficient proportion of our population is vaccinated, it means that the government could safely withdraw or roll back some of the public health safety measures and reopen our borders, paving the way for the overall reopening of our economy. The economic stimulus would arise primarily from an improvement in consumer confidence that would positively impact consumer spending. It would also come from an improvement in investor confidence that would impact investment spending positively, and it would come from an improvement in export, and the increases in export would arise from critical sectors like tourism as well as manufacturing, both of which we know were badly impacted by the pandemic. And the fourth area is an improvement in productivity. After a very disappointing growth performance in the year 2020, the IMF is projecting global growth to be in the order of 6%. I think what is significant with some of the analytical work of the IMF is that the countries that are forecasted to grow the fastest are those countries with very advanced and efficient vaccination programs, such as the United Kingdom, the United States, and China. Vaccination in itself is not a panacea for the economic challenges facing our island and our country. But what vaccination would do is that it would pave the way for us to safely return to some form of economic normalcy.
Thank you for staying with us. So if you're now joining us, you're looking at Tobago Matters. We are live on Tobago Channel 5, TTT. We're also live on Facebook on the pages for Tobago Channel 5, as well as the Office of the Chief Secretary. And we're also live on radio, Pulse 89.5 FM, Radio Tambourine 92.7 FM, Street 919 FM. Let me just give you the numbers one time. I told you before in the beginning, we are going to open up the phone lines. We are going to give you the opportunity to interact with the panel. That will be coming up. So keep these numbers close, 635-1412 or 635-1005. Those are the numbers to call in and speak live. Of course, there's WhatsApp if you prefer that method, 688-4040. All right, so to call in, 635-1412 or 635-1005, and on WhatsApp 688-4040. And of course there is the Facebook pages. Those are monitored, so for the people viewing online, you can also put your questions there. That will be monitored and we will post them to the panel. We're going to go now. The first part of the discussion, we talked about the COVID response from the business support, social support, and education. The other part of this discussion has to do with thriving in the pandemic. And so we're going to ask the panelists now. Health Secretary, starting with you. You're in the hot seat, right? You're in the hot seat. From a health perspective, I suppose we can break it up into healthcare workers, those people who are in the actual field, and then we can speak to the average citizens like the rest of us, and maybe you may even want to single out some of your THA employees who are not in the healthcare workers, but they are essential workers. What's on your mind when you hear thriving in the pandemic? What can you say to all of us at this point, looking forward? We know what your response is. We've heard all that you say that you're trying to do, but we're looking ahead.
Well, when I hear the phrase thriving in the pandemic, I think of different strategies that we can all employ to build resilience throughout this very challenging period. And I look at it from the perspective of strategies meted out by us in the Tobago House of Assembly as the Executive Council. And of course, you would have heard the Tobago Economic Recovery Plan. that was advanced, where there was a team, there is now a document, and we are all following from that document in terms of the implementation of our policies and, of course, our different actions. And you have heard from the Division of Community Development and Enterprise Development, the Division of Health, even the Division of Agriculture, and the Division of Finance, which also has a role in this particular exercise. And then we have to look at it from the personal level, which is the individual level, and what do we do? And for us, it has to be about a focus on health and wellness and how we ensure that our mental health is intact. And of course, you know, I would encourage persons to exercise as much as possible. We also know that we can't socialize in the way that we are accustomed to. But we could use the we could use the technology to socialize. Yesterday I had a meeting with the sport sector, and there were over 65 persons in that meeting where we were talking about a number of different things having to do with sport. And so it's how we utilize the technology throughout this point to achieve the kind of socialization that we have lost. And then, of course, you know, from the business sector, as you heard from Ms. Baptiste, how can they become more creative? How can they become more innovative? And of course, to use new ways and means to capitalize on the market that is coming into existence as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. For me, my mantra has always been, behind every silver lining, there is really a dark cloud. And the opportunities, I know quite a lot of people would see challenges, but I am of the strong opinion that the opportunities arising from this COVID pandemic, we need to just see those opportunities and, of course, capitalize on those opportunities. Right. So again, when I think of thriving, I look at it from the perspective of the Tobago House of Assembly and, of course, from the perspective of individuals at this point in time. What do we need to do in order to ensure that we continue to build resilience?
Now, I know you've been trying very hard to get people to vaccinate. We are in a region, the CARICOM region, is one where vaccine hesitancy is high. Today I was reading the monetary policy report from the Central Bank, May 2021, and anybody who's listening to anything happening in the world, you understand that the places that are opening up and things are happening, it is unfortunately tied to people getting vaccinated. That's one of the big things about it, because for you to, you know, get your industry back and happening, that's what they're requiring. Do you foresee an uptake in the number of people and the number of Tobagonians? I know you said you're looking towards about 45,000. We have approximately 60,000 people on the island, give or take. What has been the response like? Speak to those people who, I mean, it's their choice. We can't force people to get vaccinated. But Tobago has to thrive, or else we will perish. So what do you say to those people who are really not about taking the COVID-19 vaccine?
Well, Glendora, the focus these days have been on those persons who are vaccine hesitant. In Tobago, we have vaccinated over 19,000 persons, and when I say 19, I'm looking in terms of the jabs administered. In that, we have over 10,000 who have received the first dose, and I think 9,000 who have received the second dose, if I'm not mistaken, in terms of the numbers. So the focus now is on those who are not vaccinated. The research is consistent. And I have a tendency to pay attention to what the research says, especially in this scenario. And one of the things it documents is that the greater risk is for those who are unvaccinated at this time. Of course, you know, the research has said that even if you are fully vaccinated and you catch COVID or you contract COVID, the effects would not be as significant as for those persons who are unvaccinated. And so it is important that all Tobago people pay attention to what the data is saying, and this is data that comes from scientists, and not scientists only in the context of Trinidad and Tobago, but scientists in the context of the world over. Right. And you would see demonstration of it in countries like the United States of America, where initially their focus was on vaccinating 70% of their population. They were not able to achieve that percentage in large part, but they have opened up. And those who are now significantly affected are those who are largely unvaccinated. And it's the same thing in the United Kingdom, where they are now focusing on opening in a big way. But the concern still is with those who are unvaccinated. From the Division of Health, Wellness and Family Development, we have been talking to our people out there. So we have had several educational programs online and, of course, with the print and other media, providing information, letting them know, of course, the benefits to be had from taking the vaccines, and most importantly, that once as we are vaccinated in sufficient number, we can, of course, go back to living our lives. Just as we had done before the COVID. So I would really encourage all of them to come out and be vaccinated, because as the research says, it is really the only way that we could manage the spread of this virus and ensure that persons are not treated with in any negative way.
All right, thank you very much for that. I want to go to the Secretary for Community Development, Enterprise Development and Labor, because this is the other aspect of being able to thrive, and we're talking Tobago-centric here. The island economy is in shambles. We've got to get very, very creative to do something. What are you saying to Tobagonians? As a Tobagonian, take off the politician hat, yes, you're responsible for policy, but talking to people personally and letting them know the severity of the situation that we're in right now. I don't know if you also see people taking it for granted, but with respect to community development, enterprise development, and of course the labor aspect of it, what do you see to Tobagonians?
At this time, I would like to address communities, because even as I talk education, I see the school as a community of learners, you know, and when I think of thriving in a pandemic, it seems almost like an oxymoron. How can you expect me to do better when people all around me are dying and people are losing their jobs and things like that? But like the Secretary said, I would like all of the people in our communities to see this time as a time of opportunity. I cannot stress how important it is for us to address this situation in three ways. Let's look at our thoughts. And I am commending this onto everyone, because the negativity that is out there could affect you significantly. So I want to encourage people in communities to think positive. This too will pass. And when it does, we want to be in a position that we can thrive. I also want to encourage us to look at our actions. And by that I mean, as Shelly said a while ago, we need to retool, because we are not going backward, we are going forward. So this technological age that we are in encourages all of us to get with the program. So we need to reskill, we need to retool, take the opportunity to learn a skill. And Glendora, what surprised me during this period is the fact that people, because they were home, they now had the opportunity to, you know, unearth some of the skills that they didn't even remember they had. I saw some beautiful dishes on Facebook that we prepared. There is so many things that we can do. We are innovative and creative. And I think that this time that we were in lockdown brought out all of those skills that, you know, we did not have time to look at. I also want us to take advantage of our support systems. What COVID-19 has taught us are what are the important things in life. And our support systems are critical. Family, community, governmental and non-governmental systems. They are here to support our efforts. And I know for a fact, even in this situation of schools, teachers and students could not get to the point that they are able to do exams successfully without their support systems. All right? Even now in communities, we are trying to re-engineer the aspect of sustainable communities. We have it within us inside the communities to do even more than we think is possible. The Tobago House of Assembly cannot be the only game in town, you know? So I want to encourage everyone in our communities to take advantage of these opportunities that COVID-19 has presented to us, and let's move forward so that we have a bigger, brighter Tobago at the end of the day.
Right, thank you. To the Senior Program Coordinator, you have also a hotbed in terms of the response. People, you talked about it before, many of us have been affected with mental ill health, and this doesn't mean the traditional people going crazy, that kind of thing. Stress has been real. We want to thrive. What are you saying to Tobagonians and anyone who's listening to us this evening about being able to cope with the stress associated, especially with this COVID-19 pandemic, as we try to go back into, I suppose, some kind of normalcy, whatever the new normal will really look like?
Right. In terms of wellness, I mean, that's such an interesting topic right now. So one of the things that we have done to try to encourage wellness, we have Wellness Wednesdays on Channel 5 every Wednesday, and we try to share on different topics to provide some psychoeducation in terms of how to be healthy mentally and emotionally. But right now, it's so important to be gentle with ourselves, you know, and also be gentle with our listeners.
Dr. Benjamin, I have to interrupt you, unfortunately. We have to stop and take a quick break right now. We'll be back. You're viewing Tobago Matters.
Do you need to apply for emergency support, inclusive of food and rental assistance? Follow up on applications or provide feedback from any service provided by the Family Development Department? Then call or WhatsApp 684-4255,
Probably when it's fair.
4699 or 683-8347 between 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. daily.
The Division of Health, Wellness and Family Development presents to you Wellness Wednesdays, a series dedicated to helping you manage the challenges of COVID-19. Join us live on the Division's Facebook page, on Tobago Channel 5, or on Pulse 89.5 FM every Wednesday until July 28th from 8 a.m. to 8:30 a.m. On Wednesday, July 21st, we discuss the issue of teenage pregnancy. And on Wednesday, July 28th, we look at mediating land matters. Wellness Wednesdays, putting the spotlight on your well-being.
Here's your Tobago House of Assembly COVID update. Did you know the THA has issued over $13 million in COVID-19 business grants and loans? Under the Business Development Unit, the following loans were distributed: food and beverage, $325,000, light manufacturing, $250,000, retail, $75,000, services, $1,894,206.66.
Thank you for staying with us. We apologize for that break in transmission, but we need to ensure that if you're listening, you're hearing all of our panelists clearly. You're viewing Tobago Matters. We are live on Tobago Channel 5, TTT. We're also live on Facebook. You can check out the pages for Tobago Channel 5, as well as the Office of the Chief Secretary. And of course, we're also live on radio and Pulse 89.5 FM, Radio Tambourine 92.7 FM, and Street 919 FM. Just before I go back to Dr. Benjamin, as she was talking about how we can thrive and cope with the stress, the added stress that COVID-19 has brought on us, very soon we're going to take your calls and questions, your feedback and questions to the panelists. 635-1412, 635-1412, or 635-1005. Those are the numbers to call in live. If you would like to send a Facebook message, you can do that on any of the Facebook pages. And of course, there's WhatsApp, 688-4040. So we go back to the Senior Program Coordinator, Dr. Benjamin. Sorry we had to cut you there, but we need to have the audience hearing you. You were talking about stress and how we can actually cope in COVID-19.
Yes, and I think I was talking about being gentle with other persons and the fact that people could be so mean on social media. You scroll through and sometimes it's so toxic, you need to unfollow. So if you need to unfollow someone, if it's a friend, a family member, unfollow them. Because sometimes social media could get you really stressed out, not sleeping for days. Sometimes you're comparing yourself to other persons. It is okay to just switch that social media off, or maybe sometimes the media if it's too much information for you. And I think it's so important for us to check in with people. So what I've been trying to do now, even though I need a task done from a colleague, I'll say, hey, how you doing? Like, how you really doing? You know, the question where you actually want them to respond and that you're not just doing it for pleasantries. And you'll be surprised, you know, people just need to talk and they just need a safe space. And we also have the counseling support hotline, and our staff are, trust me, they're there on that phone. Of course, if you call and you don't get them right away, they may be eating or they may be in the restroom. So they will definitely call right back, and they have been providing counseling support over the phone as well. So look for small ways. A quick tip before we go to, I would like to share is some of us need to reduce our lifestyle or cut back a bit. So some of the stress that we're experiencing is as a result of financial situations or other situations. The thing about COVID is, even though we were able to live a particular lifestyle before, we may need to cut back. So it might mean decreasing your phone plan or maybe cutting cable for a period. It's just a short period for you to really feel more comfortable in your space, save a bit more. And you know, when the pandemic is over, hopefully soon, then you'd be able to pick that lifestyle back up. But sometimes the stress is really preventable, and you could deep breathe your way through it, it will still be there. So it's so important to look for those things that we have within our control to cut back and change.
Well, I sure hope you're giving your social workers some extra training, because as you said, that's a big thing for a lot of us is financial management. You know, there are those people who say to us, depending on if you, let's say you have insurance, you may want to hold back this month and try to pay another month, that kind of thing. But somebody, hopefully, at the end of your line can also assist any Tobagonian that calls and wants that kind of information, hopefully. Just before I go to the manager of BDU, Dr. Benjamin, speak to us a little bit. Tobago and Trinidad, we have an aging population. For me, it's important that we pay attention to the elderly. In Tobago right here, we have many senior citizens who live alone. What sort of support, if any, is there for them? What can you say to some of those people? Because I'm sure many of them are listening to you tonight, listening to us.
Yeah, in terms of the aging unit, we prioritize those aging persons or those senior citizens who live alone for our caregiver program. So we do have that caregiver program where the caregiver could come and not only spend time with that person, but to help cook, sometimes clean, and you know, to just provide that level of support. In terms of the aging population, you know, I really feel it for this population because they were very vulnerable, especially in the very earlies of the COVID-19 pandemic. And at their stage, they need to be active. They need to be talking to people and socializing to keep their cognitive abilities intact. So as much as possible, I would say, one, actually, us younger people need to start preparing for aging. So if I could talk to anybody, I would talk to people in their 20s, their 30s. Your first job, you need to start saving for retirement. You need to start thinking through how are you going to live past this job? Do you have a cushion? Do you have a savings? What happens if your children leave you? You know, because some people think their children is their retirement plan.
Correct.
But your child,
Correct.
your child might actually leave,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
what are you thinking through beyond that? Are you thinking about your health, your lifestyle, and the fact that what illnesses are in your family and that you might be at risk of getting down the road? Because what I've noticed, quite a bit of the senior citizens that request services is as a result of health concerns and not being able to manage the multiple diagnoses on their pension. So it's something for us to really think
Dr.
about.
Benjamin, your boss next to you, I don't know how much more time we have, you know, but I suspect that we're going to need a whole other Tobago matters to deal with that. In the same way that we will need a separate one to deal with this other division. But just before we go to the cause, let me ask the manager of the BDU. Thriving in the pandemic, a lot of people who are listening to us right now are in fact business owners, potential business owners. People like to use the term entrepreneur. Speak to the Tobagonian the Tobagonian that is your client, as well as we have people in Trinidad listening to us and wherever else. But speak to the citizen here in Trinidad and Tobago.
Okay. To really thrive in this pandemic, it requires a new approach, a deliberate and specific one. One that calls for networking and strategic alliance. Strategic alliance with the right stakeholders to ensure that the right synergies are achieved and maintained. So for example, restaurants and food places are opening on Monday. How can we network to achieve and to ensure that, as we like to say, everybody eat our food? So I have a restaurant. I therefore need to engage the butcher down the road, the person who's doing the seasoning and the pepper sauce, the gardener who's doing the provision. We need to ensure that we work together. If we are to compete with the big industry, we need to step up our game. We can't go on the computer, just print out an old label and slap it on your product. It cannot compete on the market. We need to improve our customer service. When I walk into your restaurant, you can't tell me take it or leave it. No. We are dealing with intelligent consumers now, and that who understand their rights. I mean, some of them don't really accept some of their responsibilities, but they understand that they have rights, and they will stand up and speak loudly. We have the proliferation of the social media. So one bad mistake you make, one salty rice, and Facebook have it all over the place. So it requires a different approach, a strategic alliance, as I said. We need to network, we need to partner. No more can we say, you see me, I doing this on my own. You will not be able to make it.
Well, let me ask you this here, and I know one of the biggest complaints in the THA is the lack of funding, right? As we look towards the future, given the real reality of the Tobago Island, you know, given when we look at the education level, when we look at the role of technology, we are really behind, right? And we're not casting blame or deliberately being negative, but we're looking towards fixing this. Do you see the THA, your division, perhaps going to your secretary and requesting a bigger budget so that she could go and argue with the health secretary about not getting the extra funding, you know, but to really go out into the communities and do the necessary education that is required?
Okay. So the truth be told, it requires education and funding beyond the Tobago House of Assembly. There are grant funds available internationally that we have not tapped into. And I would encourage persons, instead of just going through Facebook and all the social media just to be up to date with the latest trend, check out what is available out there. So for example, last Thursday, I would have been in discussion with some of our partners from the Caribbean Development Bank. And in the week of the 13th to the 18th of September, there will be a training program available for persons involved in culture and the creative arts. And that training is specific for persons who want to access grant funding, and that training will provide you technical assistance in how you develop your proposal to access that type of donor funding. So it is not just about THA, it is not just about fighting here. There is so much more available. Let's tap into what is available regionally and internationally to expand ourselves. We can't all fight for the little pie that is here. There is much more available.
Thank you very much. And there's so much more that can be said, but we've got to stop there because we want to get the audience in on the discussion. We are going to go to WhatsApp, and remember that number is 688-4040. Let's have the WhatsApp question up. And this question says, what can the Division of Health do differently to get more persons on board convinced or convinced to take the vaccine?
Well, of course, we know that the situation is a very mandatory, it's one that requires responsibility of self, basically, and it's not mandatory, it's more voluntary than anything else. And so the only thing we could do at this point is to continue to educate persons in terms of the benefits of taking the vaccines. And we have been doing that. We have been talking to the population at large, and most importantly, we have been talking to the young persons as well through the Division of Youth Affairs and Sport. So as it is now, it is a voluntary exercise. I have seen where in the last few weeks or so, there were discussions at the level of some businesses where they have indicated that it is now a requirement for their workers. And so perhaps we may come to that point where businesses would indicate that in order for them to continue to reopen and to thrive in a particular way, it's really, it should be built into the contractual arrangement. But for now, it's only that we can appeal to persons to use their better judgment and, of course, to provide the information so that people can make the best decision.
All right, thank you very much for that. Let's go to the phone lines. We have a caller. Good evening, caller.
Good evening. Hearing me?
Yes, we're hearing you. Please pose your question.
Right, this question is for the Secretary for Health. Okay, hello?
Go ahead, caller.
Right, the central government would have sent $55 million for the COVID relief. Right, I heard the Secretary said that 19 million of that was used to pay gratuity to health workers. For me, that is a misappropriation of funds. And I'm asking if that is the reason why a lot of people could not get the salary relief grant and the rental grant, and that there was such a shortage of PDPEs in the hospital and all the auxiliary things. I want the Secretary to comment that taking $19 million out of the COVID relief fund, if that's not a misappropriation of funds.
Thank you very much, caller.
Well, let me respond to the question by saying, well, thank you first and foremost for the question, and let me bring clarity. The central government would have given to the Division of Health, Wellness and Family Development monies to be utilized throughout this fiscal period, of course, to treat with things having to do with COVID relief and to deal with outstanding matters at the Tobago Regional Health Authority. So let me indicate that. And of course, we had to treat with the staff, and we have utilized a portion of that to pay outstanding gratuities, because that was in fact an issue at the level of the TRHA, so it can in no way be looked at a misappropriation of funds. I just want to make the point that I meet with the COVID task force on a weekly basis, and based on the reports from the CEO, that is Mr. Wesley Orr, we have no issues at this point in time with PPEs, not gloves, not masks, not anything of those sorts, not hand sanitizers at the Scarborough General Hospital, and even at the health centers as it is now. I just want to make the point that whatever monies are received, whether it is through the parliamentary appropriation, whether it be through the central government, we will utilize the funding in order to ensure that our systems are more effective and that our systems are more efficient, as the case might be. And of course, the focus at the end of the day is to ensure that we save lives as much as is possible.
All right, thank you very much for that, Secretary. Just to remind the viewing and listening audience that you can get in on the action. You can send your questions or call in live on WhatsApp. It's 688-4040. To call live, it's 635-1412 or 635-1005. And of course, this is Tobago Matters, the virtual community meeting series by the THA, where they are going to basically account on their plans and initiatives within the period. On WhatsApp, this person is asking, do you think Tobago would have been able to manage its own COVID-19 response without the input from the Ministry of Health? And this would be for the Secretary of Health.
Well, it's in fact a unitary state, Trinidad and Tobago. And one of the things that we have always emphasized is collaboration. Collaboration with state and the Tobago House of Assembly, collaboration between the private sector and of course with the Tobago House of Assembly. And we have been emphasizing that more so now throughout this COVID pandemic, because of course, you know, the THA cannot do it alone. In Tobago, we are not able to make laws at this point in time. The laws can only be made by central government. And of course, we know that we are managing people's behaviors in large part. And so if you are managing people's behaviors, there are, of course, laws that you would have to effect in order, in this pandemic, in order to manage the movement of people. I just want to make the point that the collaboration with the central government would have brought benefits to the people of Tobago. But more importantly, Tobago have been managing the COVID even without the Ministry of Health. And of course, you know that we have created our own pathways. We have set our own policies, which were sometimes not in keeping with the policies of the Ministry of Health, Wellness and Family Development. But of course, you know, this time calls for collaboration, and we did welcome the collaboration and will continue to welcome the collaboration from the Ministry of Health and central government.
All right, thank you very much. We go to the phone lines. Good evening, caller.
Good evening. How are you all? I just want to say congratulations to the panel. I really think that you all have been very, very lucid in terms of your statement so far. I just want to say something really quickly. I want to say, first and foremost, congratulations to the staff at BDU, the secretary and her staff, Ms. Baptiste and the team. I would have definitely been one of the people who would have been a recipient, I guess, of the grant and that kind of thing. And I know as a society sometimes we are guilty of not expressing thank you. So you would find, for example, calls become inundated with people who did not get through, right? On the other hand, just want to say that with the initiatives that are there, if we are able to grab them and as Ms. Baptiste said, qualify, because it's not a matter of just free money. I think the money is basically accountable to the people. So as a result of that, there has to be some kind of level of accountability and competence, in a sense, to get it. But one of the things that I just want to encourage the people out there and all of us, and even, you know, as they have the listeners, as they are the listeners, that with a state like this, I comfort myself into thinking that there are going to be, in very, very dark times, in very, very hard times, there are people who somehow find a way to succeed. In Haiti, as bad as Haiti is, the poorest country in the world, there are businesses succeeding in Haiti, which means that from a perspective that we can find a mindset to succeed. So I just wanted to just encourage everybody and to thank the staff, thank the panel there, Mrs. Melville-Jack, you know, the whole crew, you know, and just to say thank you all so much for what has been happening. And we're going to continue to work
All right.
to ensure, yeah.
All right, caller, thank you very much. So no question really, but just a comment both for the panelists and for the listening and viewing audience. We go to WhatsApp, and this person is saying, as a landlord, I would like to know when rental assistance will be paid. Tenant applied in December 2020. So we can go to the senior.
Perhaps I can answer. Okay. Perhaps I can answer some aspects of it. Perhaps the individual did not qualify. I'm not so sure, because of course there is a qualification criteria, and you could perhaps hear from the director, the the health coordinator, family development and wellness coordinator. Sorry, but I would encourage that person to check, to come to the division to see exactly what the situation is, because we have been ruling out assistance in that regard.
We've got a second part to that question. It says, will the same amount of money be paid in the second tranche as the first tranche? In terms of the rental assistance.
Okay, so in terms of, so I will suggest that this person contact our hotline. So the number is 683-8341, 683-8341. So you could call or WhatsApp the Family Help Hotline, and then you'd be able to get more specific feedback, because I'm not sure who we're talking to. And so I think you should do that if you haven't already, and speak with one of our staff, and they'll be more than happy to help you.
All right, so let's go to the phone lines. Good evening, caller.
Good evening. Madam Secretary. Hello?
Which caller, please turn your TV or radio down. And we're asking everyone, if you're going to call in on the phone lines, please ensure that the television or the radio or the device that you're listening to us on is down, and listen to us on the telephone that you're talking to us on.
Yes.
Good evening.
Secretary. Really cool. And Madam Secretary, I need to get you straight. I am not talking about the normal subvention that the Tobago House of Assembly gets quarterly, which you all are getting monthly. I'm speaking specifically to the COVID relief money that was sent. Are you saying that the Tobago House of Assembly, the COVID relief money, that the Tobago House of Assembly can do what they want to do with it? Like how you took 19 million...
Caller. One, if I'm not mistaken, the secretary responded to the question that you asked. She did. Caller.
Yeah, go ahead.
She did speak directly to the 50 million that came from central government, which is the question that I asked earlier. But when you ask about it, she did specify.
Can you allow me to ask my question, moderator?
Caller, well, I'm asking you to understand that she responded to your question. So if you have a second question, that's okay. But basically, you're asking the same question again.
I'm asked it.
And we do have other callers on hold.
Well, let me ask a different question.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm asking the secretary for the BDU, the loans and grants that you all give out. What is the end result you all are looking for? Is it to create, for example, those people that you give the grant, to create employment, for example, to get the people out of the system of the THA, or what? Can you speak to that? When you give these grants to the various sectors, what is the end result of creation of employment? So those people that you give will create employment, or what? Speak to that, please.
Okay, thank you very much, caller.
Thank you so much for your question. And you have really answered yourself at some point in time, because that is our ultimate intent. We want to ensure that we increase the private sector on the island, and this is an excellent way to start. So even though you start at first having yourself in the business, as the business grows, the ultimate intention is that they would be able to employ other people within their enterprise, thereby creating a robust private sector on the island. And that, sir, is our basic intent.
Okay, thank you very much. We go to WhatsApp now. This person is asking, can the Secretary for Education give some more information on the data plan available for teachers and how to go about accessing it? Same for laptops for teachers. Well, I think you said you're going to look into laptop for teachers in the future, but the data plan?
Well, the data plan is called an affinity data plan. And at this point in time, we have a similar plan that is being offered by B-Mobile, because, you know, both of them are in competition. And when I spoke about the Digicel plan, B-Mobile came up with their own plan as well. In order to access these plans, you are to go to the respective providers, and you must show proof that you are an educator or that you are a parent of children. You know, and the rates that will be offered to you would be the rates that were negotiated between the service provider and the Division of Education.
Okay, thank you very much, Secretary. Do we have a caller on the line now? But before we go to the caller, we have a Facebook message. This person, Kathy Lee Kim, is saying to the manager BDU, is there a direct contact for persons wishing to receive updates on the status of an application for grant funding?
Yes, our office number 639-4818, extension 2024. But specifically, I want to remind the clients or persons who would have applied that once your application would have gone through the process, you would have been assigned a loans officer. Therefore, you are supposed to contact your officer, who will give you a detailed update on the status of your application.
Okay, thank you very much. So we go to the phone lines now.
Yeah, hello.
Good evening, caller.
Yeah, hello, good night.
Caller, go ahead, we're hearing you. Good evening.
Yeah, good night. Well, I mute the TV now, but I'm not hearing you on the phone. Good night.
Listen to us on the phone.
Yeah, good night. There was a COVID upsurge in the Scarborough Hospital, and about 3 weeks ago. Right? Well, I want to know what is the status on that, and why most of the nurses who given COVID in vaccination are not wearing gloves.
Okay, thank you very much, caller. Health Secretary?
Well, I'd answer the last question first. And as I indicated earlier, taking the vaccines is really a voluntary exercise. And, you know, we continue to appeal to all of the healthcare workers who are on the front line to at least be vaccinated, because it's important. And as I said, it can really assist in saving lives. In terms of the cluster of cases that we have had at the Scarborough General Hospital, I think about 90% of those medical practitioners who would have contracted the virus returns to work on Monday, if I'm not mistaken, because their quarantine period ends this weekend, some on Saturday and some on Sunday. So we should see about 90% of them returning to work by Monday, Tuesday, for the latest. In the discussions I've had with the members of the board of the TRHA and also with the CEO, they have ramped up their standards of operating procedures at the Scarborough General Hospital with a view to ensuring that we manage any such other occurrence, if there be any, at the hospital.
We have a caller on hold, but just before we go to this caller, I think this caller that has just gone there, he asked why the nurses aren't wearing gloves when they administer the vaccine.
I am not so sure it's a requirement to wear gloves when administering the vaccines. Of course, if it is a requirement, I would expect that it be taken into consideration.
Okay, so we go to the other caller. Good evening, caller. Thanks for holding.
Hello?
Caller, good evening.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
Hello?
Yes, caller, listen to us on your telephone, please.
I am calling with regards to the BDU grant. Now, my husband and I have we're in the tourism sector, and we had put in an application with BDU since last year. We got a call advising us that our grant was approved months ago. This is months ago. We got it. My husband went in, we signed a relevant document, and up to today, no one has contacted us to tell us the way forward, right? We have been trying to call all the numbers given to us, or for goes unanswered. Can you please speak to that? Because we're in the tourism sector and we're trying to see how best we can start to organize our business to catch whatever is left of the winter season should we open up fully. And I mean, I think that is the objective of the government to eventually get that.
Okay, caller, thank you. Thank you very much. I think we got the gist of it. They applied over a year ago. They got a call saying they were successful, but nothing since then.
So let me sincerely apologize. As we would have explained early on, and as I had to speak with our client a couple of weeks ago, we're not making excuses, but we're giving reasons. The applications, as I would have indicated, are overwhelming. And therefore, it requires a process. So, as she would have indicated, she has been advised that it was approved. But there's a process that we need to go through. Additionally, we are strapped in terms of the assembly. Remember, it is one small pool, and therefore, reprioritization has to take place. What is happening now is that we are processing the paperwork so that when the releases are received, the checks will be processed. So again, let me apologize, and it's not just the tourism sector, but there are a number of sectors that have been affected. So we sincerely apologize for the delay, but all things being equal, you will get that call very soon to come and collect that check.
All right, thank you very much. Let's go to Facebook. Petite lady. Has the Division of Education done any collaboration with private ECCEs, early childhood and care centers, I believe, to ensure that they're able to provide optimally?
Thank you so much for your question. At this point in time, I can say that we have not yet been able to distribute devices, and I will start with devices. We have not been able to distribute devices to private ECEE centers. And you would understand that the main reason is because they are private. However, I have had a conversation with the administrator concerning these centers, and we have agreed that we would come to a decision where we would gift a couple devices to these centers. I believe that the centers, whether private or governmental, are just as important to our island's children. So I will put myself out there and I would say that I will visit these private centers and I will have conversations with the principals to see how we can assist. Now, you just heard that funding is a problem at this point in time. So I would not promise that we would be able to do a lot, but wherever we can assist, we will.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's go to the 49's caller. Good evening.
Hello.
Good evening, caller.
Good afternoon. Hello.
Yes, go ahead. Pose your question, please.
I have two questions to put to the panel. One, I'm permanently disabled. I went to social welfare and it's been a prolonged draft out long thing. I don't need a long amount they'll take to grant me my disability, which is a permanent disability. Also, I'd applied for a food card more than since April and I haven't gotten word from anybody.
Okay. So the first one is social services. He's saying that he applied for disability, or at least attempted to, and nothing has happened. And the second one, food card.
Well, you want to speak on that?
Yeah, I think that, so social welfare is actually another department, but he can reach out to our hotline and our staff would be more than happy to link him to social welfare because I don't have social welfare's contact with me. So if you could contact 683-8341 via WhatsApp, and we could look into that application for you. Again, that's another department, but we'll be more than happy.
Repeat the number a little slowly.
Sorry, 683-834. Oh, I'm sorry, that's the wrong one. It's 684-4699.
Okay.
So that first one was counseling. So if you need counseling support, you could go to that one. But it's actually 684-4699 in terms of updates for food and rental support. And I'm also encouraging the guy to follow up on that. Now, in terms of the food card, the thing is, you probably should look, contact the hotline about that, because I'm not sure if you applied for the food card or the food voucher, and they're two different things. So the food card is through the Ministry of Social Development. The food voucher is through the Division of Health, Wellness and Family Development. So please contact that number, WhatsApp or call 684-4699, and let's see if we could get some assistance to you. By the way, you should try calling between Monday and Friday, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. So we have our next question. This is via WhatsApp. It says, do you think Tobago would have been able to manage on its own without Trinidad during this pandemic and after? So this is pretty much a slant to something that we had before. Earlier, somebody asked specifically about whether or not Tobago could have managed without the input of the ministry. I suppose this time it's if we could manage on our own without Trinidad or so. I think that question was essentially answered. So let's go to another contribution. This person is saying, can anything be done to lessen the crowd when going for vaccines? Health Secretary?
Well, in the Tobago scenario, we largely vaccinate persons based on a pre-registered arrangement, and so we encourage persons to use 211 to indicate whether or not they would be willing to take the vaccines, and we schedule those appointments accordingly. Even those priority groupings that we have vaccinated or have been vaccinating rather, those appointments as well are scheduled. So we have not really had any significant crowding at any of our facilities just yet, and we intend to manage the exercise so that we do not put anyone's lives at risk.
Okay, so we go to WhatsApp again, and this question reads, can the Secretary for Education, well, we've had this WhatsApp before. Yeah. This one has come up before. If you want to get your question to any of the panelists on WhatsApp, it's 688-4040, or you can call 635-1412 or 635-1005. All right, we're talking about the COVID-19 response, specifically as it relates to business support, social support, and of course, education. So we go to WhatsApp again, and this question reads, how is the Division of Health managing the backlog of cases of persons waiting for their second vaccine shot? Health Secretary?
I don't have data that we have a backlog of persons awaiting their second vaccine shots. I know periodically notices will go out to the public to indicate when persons are to come to the various sites in order to receive their vaccine. So I don't have that information now that we have a backlog of persons awaiting. We have had a very, very predictable and very efficient rollout of administering the vaccines on this island. And at this point in time, I'm comforted that most of the persons who have since applied for vaccines, especially in the priority areas, have been administered at least one shot of the vaccine.
All right, so just before we close off, two things that came up from the questioning. To the Senior Program Coordinator, you answered one question about the rental assistance. One person asked whether or not there's a difference between what the landlord gets in the first tranche versus the second tranche. I was told by somebody in the division that there is in fact a difference. So I will ask you guys to put that information out there so that people know. When you apply the first time, you get the $2,500. I was told that the second time around, well, a maximum of $2,500. The second time around, it will be a maximum of $1,500. And if you apply a third time, this is what I was told, it's a maximum of $1,000. All right, so just to the person asking there, if you all will verify, because I'm guessing somebody may have shared that information with them with respect to the difference in the tranches. Right?
Right, yes. So in terms of the rental assistance, so for the first period, which I think we're saying using the term tranche, it's for 3 months at a maximum of $2,500. Then there's an option to apply for an extension, and based on my understanding, the maximum is $2,500 for that second tranche, which is another 3-month period. Where I think it goes down to $1,500 is that third tranche. But for the first and second tranche, it's the maximum of $2,500, and we're actually exploring the option of keeping it at that $2,500 throughout, because we understand COVID is a bit unique. You're not making money, so you're not able to supplement that $1,000. So we're exploring that. But again, reach out to the hotline and try your best to. But since we're talking about landlords, if I could just quickly put a plug in there, I want to sincerely, share that we empathize with landlords. Because landlords are in a situation where they've been so kind to their tenants for months, and the bank has not been that kind to them.
Right.
They still, some of them still paying bills, they're still, having to pay their mortgage.
Yeah, that's the harsh reality. We're going to go to the phone lines. We have a caller. Good evening, caller. Caller, good evening. Okay, we're not hearing the caller in studio. Good evening, caller. Are you there? All right. So let me just go to the health secretary. Just to go back a bit on one question that was raised, and that caller raised basically the question twice. You explained that you didn't think that taking out of the $50 million from central government, including of the $5 million from the Executive Council, to pay the backlog of gratuities, right? That is not misappropriation. I would just like for you to explain that again before we go.
Well, thank you very much. Let me say that when the TRHA and the Division of Health, Wellness and Family Development received that $50 million, it was to treat with issues at the TRHA and, of course, at the division. The issues confronting us then were the gratuities for members of staff, as well as the treating with the COVID-19 pandemic. So we had to treat with things like equipment, we had to treat with things like PPEs, we had to treat with the human resources, and most of the in treating with the human resources, we had to deal with the gratuities, and most importantly, we had to deal with hiring new staff at the TRHA. So we utilized the funding in that way to treat with the health priorities, and most importantly, to treat this with the psychosocial priorities as well, which was to ensure that we can treat with food and rental support and all those other things that were necessary throughout this pandemic. And so that was supplemental funding received from the government of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago.
Okay, thank you very much. Because I remember when it came, there was a big discussion about paying out contractors and all of that, so that the TRHA can actually function.
That's important, because we were able to pay quite a number of the suppliers who we had owed money over the last year or so for things that are necessary to operationalize the hospital. And so it wasn't only gratuity, but suppliers as well.
Okay, great. We have one last caller before we close off. Good evening, caller.
Hello?
Good evening, caller.
Yes, you hearing me?
Loud and clear, loud and clear.
Right. The secretary now, she said she hired doctors and nurses. Is she allowed to do that without service commission? And the second question, the Olympic team that, the officials that go across, that are going to Tokyo, is there any, we have 6 athletes from Tobago. Is there any official there from Tobago? I listen also.
All right, caller. I'm sorry I have to cut you, but we literally have to go to closing now. Secretary, unfortunately, you have like 15 seconds to give a quick response, and then we have to go.
Yes, very quickly. We have Annette Knott, who will be accompanying the team to Tokyo at this time. And of course, we have 6 athletes there, and I've issued my congratulations to them. And in terms of hiring staff at the TRHA, yes, the TRHA is an autonomous body. The roles and responsibilities, rules, and the operations of management is set out in the Tobago Regional Health Authority and, of course, the RHA's Act, and so they do have that authority.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for viewing Tobago Matters. That's all we have for tonight. Good night.